Howdy, everybody. This is your friendly neighborhood Comic Art Spotlight host, Phil Cox. And we are having technical issues again on a Thursday, unfortunately. Shaun is he's moving to a second laptop at the moment. So we're going to see, hopefully, fingers crossed, that we don't have the same problem we had right before Comic Art Live, where we had all those technical issues going on leading up to doing Tony's interview as well. So Shaun's switching laptops right now. Still cleaning pie. Yeah, that was a mess. I'll tell you. I learned a lot about taking a pie in the face now, and I know that sounded really bad. But the thing is you gotta put a tarp down on the floor, and you have to have it like probably a towel over your lap, and you still need a little extra protection all around because I did. It was a mess. I had it all in my earbuds, nothing in the keyboards, fortunately, but it was definitely a mess. I know, Tony, your internet's working great now. I'm sure of it. But hey, Alfredo, we're having some technical problems right now, but we are. Shaun is switching his devices, and we're going to try to get him on here any minute now. He's just booting up his other laptop. So that's how it goes. Hey, Larry. Nice to chat with you again today. Pro pie tips right there. I'm telling you. I learned my lesson. I was just a little upset. I mean, I didn't think they were going to put that much whipped cream in it. And that was not what I was expecting at all. Hey, Ron. Nice to see you as well. David, Matt. Boy, we got everybody's in here tonight. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, I hope everybody enjoyed last night's show. It was fun. I mean, it was a lot of work to pull all the video editing together, but we all had a good time at the end of the day. So, and they still sold art. I kind of thought like everybody would just be so into watching Billigan do stupid stuff that we wouldn't really sell any artwork too. But, I'm always surprised. And Mike sold 2 pieces of art after the show. So I think the Mike Mignola and the Marie Severin. So he pretty much sold all but 1 artwork after all was said and done. So, hey, Jordan, nice to see you as well. I hope you liked, I tried to put as many islandish references into that, had the lay on and everything. So that was all fun. But let's see. Getting texted here. Oh, my goodness. Nice text from Tatiana. But I'm waiting for Shaun to pop back in here, and he just did. So we're going to see. I'm going to bring him in, and we're going to see if this new laptop is better than the other.
All right. Can you hear me, buddy?
Yeah, this one's perfect.
Of course it is. It's my wife's.
That was when we did the thing with Tony and it didn't work. I had a feeling if I would have asked him to switch to his wife's computer, we probably would have had no problems. But
right.
Live
and the other one real quick so I can get rid of it. Okay, I think I closed out. Anyways, I'm here. So how's it going?
It's going well. Hey, I'm glad you picked up some art last night. I was worried. I saw that early text where you said you were in your car, and I was like, "Uh-oh, this might not end well." As far as getting to pick up the artwork and things.
Yeah, I'm 3 hours behind you. So it was like 6 o'clock here when I left the office, and so I was trying to listen to it on my cell phone. And on my cell phone, if I scroll down the comments, I can't hear what's going on with you guys because it shuts it off.
It takes it off, right? Yeah, I never even thought about that.
Yeah, so here I am trying to text and trying to make offers, and you guys say that you've already responded, and I didn't hear it. So it was tough.
Well,
but I got something. I just got the invoice from Anthony just a few minutes ago.
Good. I'm glad. Well, I was worried, and then it kind of worked out that the way they split that whole thing up, given the one page that which has never happened before for anybody to even ask to split up a set of artworks. But I guess at the end of the day, that worked out in your favor since you had the preceding page or the following.
I had the page after that splash. So that's in fact the reason I bought that page was because it had Captain Marvel in it, and I'm a big Captain Marvel fan. Right. So that was the reason that issue was the one I was wanting more than others. So yeah, now I'll have 3 pages from that issue. And I like Ron Lim's artwork too. So I think he's underrated. He reminds me of George Perez a lot. So
yeah, no, that's true. Very true. So So well, then I'm glad. Well, Anthony should have just offered that page to you outright. He shouldn't have even put it on Dueling Dealers.
Well, I didn't want to bring this up, but he said on the Facebook, when I posted the page I won on Facebook, on the Facebook group, he mentioned he had other pages. So I said, send me a list, and then I emailed him and told him to send me a list, and he never sent me a list.
I never sent you. Well, I'll tell you, that's the one thing with those guys. They really do. They try to bring all their new stuff to the show. So, even Mike, he doesn't do his site updates hardly anymore because any of the new stuff he puts on the show first. So it's nice in that regard. But you would think, I'm just saying, as a matter of customer service, if he knew that you had, that next page that he's, that's
you would think, right? But hopefully, I emailed him again and said, "Do you have any others?" So we'll see what he comes up with.
See, yeah, I guess Ted knows you well. He said, let's take a look at all of your commissions. It'll only take about 20 hours.
Yeah, I've known Ted for years. So I haven't really bought artwork from dealers before. So it's just a recent phenomenon for me. I've been doing it probably about a year now, buying art from dealers. I usually buy them from other collectors or directly from the artists.
Just a matter of preference, or it just so happened that you were always dealing direct more?
I prefer to give the money direct to the artist if at all possible, or if it's one person removed. But it's getting harder and harder to find the artwork you want. So your group is what really clued me into wanting to buy art from dealers. So your live auctions were some of the first I've ever bought from dealers. So.
Oh, wow. No, that's cool. So I was assuming you were going to say you just weren't really into published work, so going to dealers made no sense. It's just
no. I've got published works. I got about 100 pieces that have been published, but I have like 600 recreations. I have 1,200 pieces of artwork. So if you subtract 600 and 100, that means 500 commissions, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, when I said you were the master of commissions and recreations, I really wasn't lying. I had the billing right.
I guess I'll take that. I'll take that title.
Well, before we get into commissions and recreations as a topic, we might as well just do the standard. Give me your origin story as far as getting started in the hobby, and then we can go from there. Because I do have a lot of questions for related to your experience getting commissions and recreations, but giving us all kind of an overview of your experience getting started in the hobby to today.
Let's see. I've been collecting comics since I was 7. And I went to my first comic convention in 1991 when I met Stan Lee here in Washington State. But I grew up in Massachusetts, and I moved out here in 91 with my ex-wife. And when I came here, there was a flyer in a bookstore mentioning Stan Lee would be at a comic convention. I had never seen a comic convention promoted at all in Massachusetts, my hometown. So this was first. I wanted to meet Stan Lee, big fan of his. So I went and met him. I met him 25 years later, totally different story. But back in 1991, you could sit there, have your photo taken. He'd sign as many comics as you wanted. He shoot the breeze for about 15, 20 minutes. Very approachable. Like I said, I have a photo my ex-wife took of us together. And, we emailed each other, corresponded by mail for a couple of years afterwards. And in fact, he signed that photo in the mail and sent it back to me. Anyways, I started getting into Golden Age comics about 1993, 92, 93. Up to that point, I was just collecting the stuff off the stands in the 1970s and 80s. And the Golden Age comics interested me enough to want to know more about the people who drew them. It was neat to see. But what really got my attention was on my 30th birthday, so 1997, June 1st, there was a comic convention that had some artists there. And I went there to go buy a Conan 1. So I had $200 on me, and I didn't have a Conan 1. I always wanted a Conan 1. And so I go to the show, and there's an artist row, and there's a person there, and you can show the Hawkman piece because that's the piece I'm about to talk about.
Sure.
And he has a piece of artwork there at the table. And I go up to that person. I said, "Is that a print?" And he said, "No, that's an original drawing I did." And I said, "Well, how much would it be?" He said, $200. So I said, "Wow, that's really nice." So I walked around and I found a Conan 1 for about $200. And I said, "You know what? I'm never going to see this. I'll be able to find a Conan 1 again, but I'll probably never see that drawing again. So I went back and bought that directly from Sheldon Moldoff on my birthday, on my 30th birthday. That's what started me on the original art quest.
Wow.
He was in San Diego a few months later, and a buddy of mine asked me to go down to San Diego, which I'd never done before and had no interest in doing, but he wanted to sell comics and he needed me to help him watch his table. And so I brought a box of comics, and Sheldon Moldoff was going to be there. So after I bought that piece of artwork, Sheldon Moldoff gave me his contact information. So we talked by phone, and I commissioned 2 more pieces from him. He said he'd have them done by the time I was at the San Diego show, which was probably late July or so. So it was probably 6 weeks after I met him. And I went down there, and by God, he had them done. So I bought those pieces from him directly. They were recreations of Golden Age covers he had done in the past. And we struck up a friendship and stayed in touch, interviewed him and got his story down. And I also, at that 1997 show, also met Dick Ayers, Russ Heath, and Don Rosa. Don Rosa was a Golden Age comic collector too, and he wouldn't take on commissions. And I had a Crime Monsters #1 comic he really wanted. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I'll trade you this comic for a commission. And I should have sent you this photo because I still have it. And so he did one of Huey, Dewey, and Louie with Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck. Nice piece. And we just swapped comic for artwork. And I do that. Frank Bruno is another person, and Terry Austin is another person who also collects Golden Age. But Frank Bruno was my next person for trading, and I got a nice Sheena pencil drawing from him, and I can't remember what comic I traded for it. So back in 1997 was when I started getting commissions. Jim Mooney, I was tracking them all down through this book called The Jerry Bales Who's Who of Comic Books. It was in print form. It wasn't online.
Heard of it.
Jerry still had 3 of the 4 books left. The last 3 print copies he had. And so I bought those 3. This is, 1997. So the only way you could actually communicate, in fact, I was communicating with other collectors through AOL. America Online would have groups like CGC boards would be today. And you'd be in these little groups with little headers. And I would communicate with other people across the United States about comic books or artwork. And I'm still in communication with a few of them now, and I'm still on AOL. But back then, this was before eBay, before Facebook.
Right.
But AOL, CompuServe also had another one. If you remember CompuServe, probably dating myself there.
No. I was there too. Trust me. I'm a year young, or you're younger than you are. So
I just turned 54 2 days ago. So So I started collecting in 1977 comic books. So I've never been a fan of Silver Age, big fan of Golden Age, and of course the 1970s and 80s. So when I was getting artwork and commissions and recreations, at that time I was centering on Golden Age artists because the 70s artists and 80s artists were still working in the business. They didn't have time for commissions. I would try Paul Galassi, who lived near me, Mike Plug, Mike Grell. And whenever they had time, I was right there and got a commission from them. But usually they blew me off. But the Golden Age people were pretty available. And so, Erwin Hazen, I'm trying to remember some other Golden Age artists. But anyways, I have probably, Kelly Frias. Kelly Frias was somebody who had done a cover called Witchcraft 5, a Golden Age comic. And I didn't send you that scan either. I could send you hundreds of scans, but Witchcraft 5 was one I really wanted, and he didn't have a rep. We struck a deal. It was at the time the most I'd ever paid for any commission at that time was just pencil, and it was about $1,000. Mm-hmm. And so we did it. I got it, loved it, but I then said, you know what? I wonder how much he charged for a painting instead of the pencil. So I contacted him again and asked him if he'd do a painting, and we struck a deal again. It was about triple the cost. Mm-hmm. And then I sold the pencil version and some comics, and it took me about 2 months. I recontacted him, and then he got an agent.
So now it was 20% more.
Way more. So I was like, what I just sold the pencil one, so now I don't have anything.
Right.
And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? So I was really I was pretty immature at the time because I was mad, and I shouldn't. I said some things I shouldn't have to his agent, not to him.
Right.
And but I debated about it, and this is where I was struggling with myself and realizing if I don't get it done, I'm going to regret this years from now. No matter how much it is, I'll beg and borrow to do it. So I sold a bunch of comics, bit the bullet, did it, got it. I love it. I'm glad I did it. It's framed. It's in my house. And he died a year or two later. So
Right.
and not only that, I even had a photo of him drawing it. So just to make sure. And then I even bought his own personal copy of the comic book. So yeah. So I did all the Golden Age guys there. When they started passing away, it was probably around 2009, 2010. I started thinking, do I go to the Silver Age guys, like Ramona Fradon and whoever else, or do I just skip right to the 70s guys? So I started, and I've gotten a few commissions from the 70 guys, like I mentioned, whenever they were available, like the Paul Galassi, the Jim Starlins and stuff. And then an opportunity arose. Jim Starlin was going to Africa with his wife and for his father-in-law's funeral, and he was going to be there for at least 30 days. Wanted to know if I wanted anything. So I gave him a list of all the covers I wanted. And he did them all. He penciled them all. And then Milgram inked them, and Milgram actually colored them. Milgram wasn't 30 days. He was more like 3 years. So it took a long time to get that stuff done. But I got all the Captain Marvels and all the Warlock covers recreated, and I'm glad I did it because it was before all the movie stuff.
Right.
So the only Jim Starlin cover I never got recreated was the Daredevil 107, and it's because he can't. He personally can't stand that cover. And I've tried talking to. I threw money at him. He would take 3 months to tell me. He just says, I'm not really motivated. And I hate when an artist isn't into what he's doing. So if it's not a labor of love, I'll probably not do it. And so that's the one cover I have not gotten done by Jim Starlin. So I skipped over all the Golden Age guys to the Bronze Age and have never looked back. And that's where I'm at today, still doing them all now. It's been an adventure for sure. I try to get the covers recreated that I either had when I was a child or it's from that time period. So I haven't had really many covers recreated from the 1990s or the 1960s. But I was going to say the next one after the Hawkman, I believe the first 70s piece I had done was the Paul Galassi, Master of Kung Fu, wherever it is. I'm looking for it. 54.
Oh, that's the one you sent me?
Yeah. So if you
there
want
it is.
Yep. Yeah. So that one there was the first one Paul Galassi did for me. And it was probably around 1999. And it was Christmas time. So it was about 3 weeks before Christmas. So this started a relationship that around every Christmas he would call me up and ask me which one I would want done, and we worked through the list of the Master of Kung Fu covers for the next 5-6 years. But that was the first one. It's bigger than all the other recreations he did because he didn't lightbox. So this was, and he told me that he was telling me what a tough time he had, and then I had to explain to him what most other artists do is use the lightbox reference and just redo the cover. And that's where he went from there.
That's funny.
That was the first one he did for me, and one of my favorites, also still framed. I actually brought that to Bruce Lee is buried in Seattle, and I actually went to his grave with that painting once, and had someone take a picture of me holding the painting right next to Bruce Lee's grave, and sent that to Paul, and he was all excited.
Wow.
Yeah, Paul Galassi, I'm a big fan of his. I've known him. He was the first comic book artist after Sheldon Moldoff I met. In fact, you know what? I met him before Sheldon Moldoff because I was just getting comic books signed. I wasn't getting artwork done. So I met Paul here locally, probably 1993, and we've been friends ever since. I've been with him for all 3 wives. He had 3 wives and ups and downs. I'd go down to his house, hang out with him. I've been to his studio. Nice guy, very dry sense of humor. If you don't have the same sense of humor as him, you're not going to get his jokes. In fact, I'd be with him many times where he'd say a joke to somebody else, and they wouldn't understand it. And I had to keep explaining to Paul, you're going to get punched in the face if you don't watch it. So that was Paul.
So you have actually helped people with their Christmas gift giving. They're probably their divorce attorneys, and whenever they needed a trip out of the country, you were there to fund those events.
Well, in the late 90s, I'm trying to remember, through the AOL message boards, I was telling people about some of the pieces I was getting, because you couldn't really post them. And eBay, even on eBay, if you put them on, you had to have your own hosting site. You couldn't even host pictures on eBay back then. So AOL would allow you to upload like 2 megabytes per email address. So I'd be making 7 email addresses and posting them up there for people to go hit them. But anyways, where it got to was people were excited about seeing the stuff I was posting, and they wanted to know if I could help them get commissioned. So I was actually a kind of a freelance agent for Mike Plug, Mike Grell, Paul Galassi. Like Paul Galassi did a mini series. He went back to Master of Kung Fu and did like a 5 or 6 issue mini series in the early 2000s, and I helped sell that for him. Mike Plug was recreating all the 70s covers in paint.
Yeah, I remember those.
I showed you one of them, I think, Werewolf by Night 15. So what was going on is he was going to do all his 1970s covers, redo them all in paint, and come out with a book. And someone else was helping him with the financial side. So he was doing each painting through an investor, and the investor died, and he hadn't finished all the covers yet. So that's when I stepped in and took over, and I got like 7 covers recreated before he stopped doing them entirely and moved out of the area. So that was my only contribution to that whole time in his life when he was doing all those recreations. I have the Marvel Spotlight 5 recreated too. But he had already had Cull 11, that famous one.
Mm-hmm.
The clown and the man thing in the swamp. He had already done that for the other guy who died. They all filtered out into the collecting hobby, so I don't know how that happened, but in fact, this piece here that I'm showing you, I actually sold to a guy in England when I got divorced, and tracked the guy back down and bought it back because I like this piece so much. So I'm remarried now, so it's a different story now. But back around 1999, 2000, it was a tough time for me. And the only other time I ever went through a selling phase was when I started the business I'm in right now in 2004. I got married, started a business, and bought a house. So I sold some artwork to do that, and I sold published pieces. And it's pieces I see other people posting. It's Frank Miller Daredevil pages. It's Byrne X-Men pages. It's all the classic stuff. The Avengers Annual 7, I sold because I was made a nice offer. Not the cover. The only cover I had at that time was Master Kung Fu 15, and which I sold. And I sold it because it has a glue stain on the bottom, and it really bothered me. And I had Jim Starlin recreate it anyway, so I was like, I'll sell the original. I'll just keep the recreation. So yeah, I had a lot of things go through my hands. All-Star Western 10 cover, a lot of good stuff. But I haven't sold anything like that since then.
Right.
I spent a lot of time tracking these guys down, trying to convince them to sell them back to me. When I sold them, I thought it would be just a matter of money and time before I can get that stuff back.
Mm-hmm.
Not in comic art collecting. In comic books, maybe, but in comic art collecting, these guys have death grips. I cannot get stuff back from these people, no matter how much money I throw at them. Yeah, it's I think out of the stuff I sold, I managed to buy about 10 to 15% of it back. That's it. So there's about 75-80% of people who are serious collectors who will not sell it back, no matter how much you throw at them.
Well, that is the hobby. I mean, you and I have similar experiences because if you've heard, I sold off 85% of my collection when I built a miniature golf course. The worst mistake I ever made was selling the art and building a miniature golf course. But I tried buying a lot of it back too. But some of it I can't find anymore, and so now some of it I can't afford still.
Well, you had Ted Latner just comment here. He was one of those guys I managed to give him my sob story to, and he fell for my sob story and sold me back one piece. So I thank him for that. I didn't send you the image, or I'll let you know. It was a X-Men 107 was the first comic book I ever bought of the X-Men, and it was a Dave Cockrum issue. And I had a huge commission done by Dave Cockrum. Had the cover recreated. In fact, you did have the okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think you did
Yeah.
give me that one.
I did send you that, so you can throw up X-Men 107. So that I got that directly from Dave, who's
That's
handled, by the
beautiful.
way. He and I had a love-hate relationship. He could. I had this email address named Bite Me, and he would always bring that up. He says, "Why don't you change that?"
I was thinking of it. I was going to ask you the same thing. Why don't you change that?
Yeah, the funny thing is, I created that when I was getting divorced, and so my corresponding with my ex-wife, I created that email address so that she'd have to read that every time we were discussing our divorce, and it was also linked to my eBay account, and it just so happens that I was on that email address when I was joining CAF. And otherwise, I use my main one, which is M Clancy 961. But the Bite Me one was also through with Dave, and because I had bought a piece from Dave Cockrum, that's how I met him, on eBay. He actually posted a recreation on eBay, and I bought it, and it was like X-Men 150. It was Storm and Magneto at the cover, and yeah, I think so. And then I commissioned 107 and 101, but I sold 101 and then bought someone else's. And then I had that big, huge color 2x3 commission I got that Ted was kind enough to sell back to me. And I'd saved all my correspondence for everybody I sold pieces to. That's how I found Ted, by the way. I didn't see him on CAF. I actually had a receipt with his name and address, and so I knew who has what, and that's how I track these guys down. But yeah, Ted's a good collector. He's got some great stuff. He should be one of your interviews, by the way, if you haven't done him already. But Dave Cockrum was a great guy. He was slow, but he was in ill health. This was probably around 2000, 2001, I think. I had him doing those. Yeah, so Dave is a good guy.
Yeah, Dave is one person I had commissioned probably around 2002, and so he never finished it. Yeah, it was probably about a year into after having paid him, and then he passed, so I never got that. But yeah, I talked to him several times leading up to the deciding to do it, and I just wanted him to have the money more than anything, and and then what are you going to do? So it was. That's probably that's my only bad commission story, honestly, is that one. But I haven't done many.
Well, back then you didn't know, if you were new to it, you didn't know how long artists would take, or what was the amount of time before you actually had to complain.
Right.
And so I had a friend who also commissioned X-Men 100 for Dave to do at the same time I was having 107 done. And he just had my friend at the time didn't have the same type of personality as me, so he was very off-putting. And Dave wasn't motivated to do the 100, and he never did. So he did do the 107, and my friend was very upset because he actually traded some statues to get the 100 done. So he was out the statues and never got the commission either because he had passed. But no, Dave was, to me anyways, was very personable. He had these parrots. You probably remember this. His email address was parrots too, because he was very upset with his parrots. And he had some issues, health issues at that time in 2001 that he would complain about all the time. But as you can see by the quality of his work on the 107, it was still good.
Yeah. No, I remember seeing stuff like that. That's why I ended up commissioning. I don't think I asked him for a cover recreation. I don't even remember. I think I just said, give me the 5 that you're best known for, and I don't care what pose you put him in, but yeah, I was envious of all the recreations that I was seeing kind of popping up on the Comic Art L or whatever what was the name of the site before CAF? I can't even remember now. Wasn't Comic Art L. It was.
If it was, I never heard of it. So yeah, I found out your website through a buddy of mine, Mike Browning. I don't know if you know Mike, but Mike used to do interviews with me. He and I would trade off interviewing Golden Age people, and so that's how I knew him in the 1990s. And I found out about your website through Mike. He had started switching to original art, started selling his Golden Age, pretty reasonably. So I was like, "What's going on here?" So he's like, "Yeah, I'm moving out of the comic book and going into original art." And he jumped in with both feet. It took him probably a year and a half, 2 years maybe to sell those comics and stuff, but he sold them all and went right into original art. And it took me. I still have both. I still have comics, but I sold off at least half of my Golden Age collection probably 2 years ago to help finance some large purchases. Well, they're all large purchases now. It's just ridiculous on prices. There is no low purchasing price now. So I had used that money to buy some artwork and commissions and been going crazy. I took when I saw the COVID thing happening, I saw an opportunity because all these people were home, no work. And so I jumped all over as many artists as I could find to do recreations, and actually more responded than I was prepared to take on. That's how busy it got for me, anyways. And we never got shut down. I'm in a heating and air conditioning business, and we do commercial work, so we do some public work stuff. So we were actually essential, and so we never really shut down. But yeah, I got a lot of commissions and recreations done in the last year and a half.
Wow. Well, it makes sense, though. I mean, everybody, you saw a lot of artists selling direct through their Facebook, pages and accounts, and just doing anything they could to make a buck between mid-February into the summer last year. So, I think it was kind of, because all the comics, publishers kind of shut down too. So there was 2 or 3 months where everybody was available for a commission or some kind of a side job.
Yeah, and so I was probably dealing with maybe 15 artists. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And each one had different criteria: upfront, half down, pay on completion. So you had to keep track of that stuff and keep going. So once they were done, you keep the commission request going, and that's what I did. There's only been 2 or 3 artists who several have passed away while doing work for me. And the first one was Gene Colan, but he hadn't started it yet. So Gene Colan had passed. Herb Trimpe died also right when he started my Captain Marvel 54. Alan Kupperberg died while doing mine, and Rich Buckler. They had all my pieces were some of the last pieces they ever did. In fact, Rich Buckler had finished my artwork, 2 of my pieces, but never signed them. So I had to have his widow sign the back of them to prove that they were done by him. Alan Kupperberg, though, I had done several pieces with him. He had cancer, and while he was, I thought, recovering, I tried to help him out with medical costs, so I gave him some money up front to do them. And when he passed away, his cousin got a hold of me to settle up. So they reached out to me, thank God.
Yeah, that would have been awkward to have to ask.
Yeah, you don't want to be there at the wake saying, "Hey, is my commission here?"
Right.
So, yeah. But no, those are the only ones. So sometimes you take that chance. It depends. But now I have a reputation where people will do most of the commissions and then get paid. So that it's paid on completion. So that helps a lot.
Do you go into it with that stipulation that you're going to only
no,
pay?
they sometimes volunteer. Well, sometimes you'll get an artist that you'll complain about that takes a while, and then they feel bad about it. Like Jim Starlin, when he first started with me, he did a couple of commissions for me, but he took, at the time felt like a while. It was probably 4 months, maybe 5. In today's terms, that's not that bad. But
no, not at all.
Yeah, back then he was feeling guilty, so he would do a Thanos commission for me for free. Throw it in there. I'd get a couple of those. But now, like I said, I'll have artists reaching out to me by referral, because I use some of the inkers I've used was Bob McLeod, Al Milgram, and Joe Rubenstein. And Joe Rubenstein's been not only helping me out with a lot of recreations, but he also put me in contact with even Golden Age artists. Ken Bald would have been somebody I was trying to approach, but never could get a hold of. But Joe had his contact information to hook me up with Ken Bald. So before Ken had passed away, I'd gotten 6, 7 Golden Age recreations done by him that Joe inked. I felt obligated to have Joe ink them and color, or I would have never had them. So sometimes word of mouth, like Joe keeps an eye out for me. He'll occasionally, throw me a name that asks me if I'm ever interested in getting something done by this person. He knows how to get a hold of them, and I take him up on it about half the time. So Joe and I have had a relationship for at least 10 years. I think 10, maybe 11. And he's fast. He does good work. His style has changed quite a little. I shouldn't say quite a bit, a little. And I will say, let's show the Captain Marvel stages of the commission where he's running with the planets.
Oh, right.
I'll give it, unless you have a question, but I was going to mention what I do.
No, right. I mean, I thought this was a really interesting thing that you put together. So I put them all on 3 separate slides, just so you know, because I thought it was just so cool. So I want you to explain, and I want to know how many times you've done this, because I think it's a very awesome idea. But here, I'll pull up the first image that was just the Starlin.
Yes. So this is a commission Jim Starlin did for Dave. I don't know who Dave is, but thank you, Dave. So Dave sold it on eBay, I believe. I bought it, and maybe I bought it from another collector. You know what I did? I bought that piece and 3 others, similar, different poses and such with different characters. And I'm just showing this one as the example. So when I got this, and I was starting to deal with Joe Rubenstein probably 10 years ago, I had the mentality of, it's a nice piece, but it looks plain. These guys, Captain Marvel's I'm a big fan of Captain Marvel, but he's not doing very much. So I said to Joe Rubenstein, who had been showing off some of his pieces that he had added backgrounds to for some other collector, I said, you know what, maybe this might be an example here of having Joe add background. So I asked Joe what he could do. And if you show slide number 2, this is what he did. Now, he had also sent me a sketch before he did that, which I didn't send to you. He would send me single panel thumbnail to show what he was thinking and how he wasn't going to fill the whole page. He was just going to fill it from the ankle to the forehead. And I thought that was a brilliant idea. So that was the ink version. And then I said, well, what could you do if you color it? And that's what the third phase was. And the third phase was just eye-popping to me when he added color. And to me, that's a totally different piece.
Oh yeah.
I originally bought it. When I bought the original ink piece, it was probably $200. Then with Joe and the coloring and stuff, I'm probably into it about $500. To me, though, I'd pay $2,000 for that today. So this got me thinking about, and I'm also in construction, so I've seen I've seen construction sites, houses, office buildings, how they look before you remodel them, during your remodeling, and after you remodel. And I was starting to have that attitude of like, what's that? Like a flipping type mentality where you would fix it, do a fixer upper, and then sell it. So that was the mentality I was having, but I just couldn't bear to sell any. So
right, yeah, I get you.
Buying up other people's commissions that had established records. I had found some fraud, so you had to make sure you have. You can ask the artist direct also. So I would take that image and I'd send it to Jim Starlin. I'd ask him, "Do you remember this?" And he would say, "Yeah," or Bob Layton or such and such. And so I did that with Jim Starlin probably a dozen times, and I used Joe Rubenstein each time. Mm-hmm. And I have like Thanos walking in 6 different forms.
Right.
I could put him like a cartoon because he drew them all in different phases of walking. He would never just do the same pose over and over and over again. He would actually change something. So nothing looks the same.
Right. Well, there's a ton of those Jim Starlin sketches out there that are just, a figure on a probably like about a 10 by 14 board. That somebody's going to see that and they're going to go and do the same thing. And they should.
That's fine. That's fine. I got most of what I need. So I wouldn't be bringing this up if I wasn't expecting some competition. But I'm at that phase now where I've got a lot. I don't mind sharing some of this expertise if they consider it that. But that's the attitude I would have. Not just with Jim Starlin. There are other people like Herb Trimpe or somebody like that. What I wouldn't do though is do. Now Jim Starlin has done a lot, like you mentioned, a lot of convention drawings. If you're dealing with somebody like who would only do a couple, you don't want to do blasphemy and just do that to somebody's commission that he's only done one or two and that's it. And so, but Jim Starlin has hundreds of these out there, so I thought, make mine unique, and that's the approach I had.
No, that was a super smart idea. And Johnny did ask, but I'm assuming it's the truth that you had it all done on the same board. It wasn't like you had him light box it. You pretty much took the original Starlin, had Rubenstein add the backgrounds and color on the same board.
Correct. Now, I wouldn't have used anybody but I wouldn't have used an inker or a colorist that I don't have a connection to from the time period. So if Joe Rubenstein, when Joe Rubenstein was inking Ken Bald, I had a problem with that because I know Ken Bald. Joe Rubenstein wasn't back in the Golden Age, and he never inked any Golden Age drawings because he wasn't even alive. So I had a little problem with that, but I got over it because he hooked me up with it. And so I don't have a problem with Joe doing my 70s and 80s because he was there during all that time period, especially Avengers Annual 7 and Marvel 2 and 1. And so he had a connection to it. I wouldn't use a new person coming into this for 70s stuff. So if there's a 25-year-old right now who's doing inking and coloring, I probably have him center on whatever's coming out these days, not in the past.
Sure.
So that's how I used Bob McLeod, who also did so the inkers I used, McLeod, Milgram, Rubenstein, they all also did coloring.
They did, yeah, that's true.
Paint colored, so that's why I used them.
And I can see somebody said I'm not sure I would do that to my Trimpy sketch, but the pieces look great. The thing is, if you got a piece, if you bought that probably with the idea that you were thinking that you were going to do something with it, and it wasn't a piece that you had commissioned from Starlin, you picked it, like you said, you picked it up on eBay. So you have a different attachment to the piece going into it that you knew, just given the, you had the concept of doing that. And like you said, you've done more than just that one. Yeah.
And if Jim Starlin was open to doing the same thing, if I had gotten that sketch, gave it to him and had him add stuff to it, I've done that with original artists and they have done that. Like Milgram, I'd bought a Black Cat commission, sent it to Milgram, asked him if he could. It was on 11 by 17. There were blank spots on each corner of the page. And I said, can you draw 4 scenes around the original drawing? Because I like the Black Cat drawing he did 6-7 years ago for someone else. And that's what he did. He added the scenes of the Black Cat being, during the when she got shot and she was going to the hospital, with Spider-Man's he would draw that in one panel, and he did 4 separate scenes for me in that and made that one commission a totally different piece. I would have sometimes the original artist also add to it if possible.
Well, that's really cool and very unique. I've never heard anybody, really doing anything like that. So kudos to you, Shaun. So that's why you were a trailblazer. You really had, you just had ideas that never would have occurred to me. So, even to the recreation side of things, but someone did ask, and I know Joe sometimes I think has had a bad reputation, sometimes either delays on getting things done, but did your experiences with Joe were always pretty good?
Joe Rubenstein?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, Joe and I have had arguments before. But we worked through them. Right. Being an owner of a business, you gotta know you gotta get along with everybody, even people you don't like. And so, but I like Joe. It's just Joe and I have had some issues in the past. And he's one of those guys I pay on completion. I have heard other people say they paid in advance and it takes a while and such, but no, I've not had that experience with Joe, thankfully. But he does do, I want to say a dozen pieces a year for me, at least.
Right.
And he has helped me.
I always felt that Joe got into trouble when he was taking on too much, because he is always hustling. Like I think somebody mentioned in the chat, he is always, looking for work, and that's just his MO. And I think sometimes he takes on more than he can get done at any given time. But he does when it's completed, he does really great work. Because I've had him make a few pieces myself early on when I was collecting commissions more than anything. But but that I had the same kind of thing where it just took too long. But still, at the end of the day, I was thrilled with what I got.
Yeah, he does good work, or I wouldn't be still using him. I'm still using him today. In fact, I have a stack of about 12 recreations ready to send them. But wow. I tell him, to do them when he can, because there's no rush on my end because as he's doing those, I'm still gathering more. so my cash flow is just moving straight ahead. I plan on probably a year from now, probably phasing that out when I turn 55, starting to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
But up until that point, I'm going to get as many as I can. Like Ron Wilson's did I send you any Ron Wilson? Oh, you did send you Ron. Okay, so the Marvel 2-in-1 Annual 7 commission is this will be a lead into the themes. Okay, so in addition to recreations, I try to get commissions done with themes. And
Sorry,
so
I'm trying to find which one was that one. I'm trying to see it through my slides.
I called it Marvel 2-in-1 Annual 7 commission.
All right. Sorry,
it's okay. If you don't have it, it's okay.
Oh, no, I found it. I'm sorry. Okay. I was looking at the wrong side.
This is really recent, and you'll recognize the theme.
Yep.
So Marvel 2-in-1 7 was the Thing versus the Champion. But I wanted it to be similar to the DC version of Superman versus Muhammad Ali.
Right.
They're both boxing themes, and so it's a double 11x17 taped in the middle on the backside. And this is one that Ron Wilson penciled and Joe Rubenstein inked and colored. The colors are popping out a little because I took it with my phone because they're so big. I didn't have my scanner couldn't scan it that way. And Ron Wilson's done probably 70 recreations for me. He is a workhorse. He's done multiple recreations of multiple covers. But he's cheap too. He's cheap and fast. And so I was getting as many as I can get done. If someone's interested in Ron Wilson, he doesn't mind me giving out his rate, by the way. I usually don't give out rates for people who are still in the business. People who are passed on, I don't mind telling. But Ron Wilson's one of those people who doesn't mind. This recreation is a little different, but a cover recreation on 11x17 penciled by Ron Wilson's probably a couple $100, maybe 300 tops. And so if you got a good inker like Joe, you can actually put some value into that. And Ron Wilson has done over 100 covers that were published from that time period. He'd done a lot that were never signed.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually so in addition to getting the recreations commissions, I'll ask some of these artists if they'd done specific covers from the 70s that the comics.org doesn't give any credits for. And so we've helped identify covers through this commission process. Otherwise, some of these probably get lost in history. But, only once or twice have I had two artists or three claim to be the cover artist on a cover and be in doubt. Like John Buscema, Nova One cover recreation. Rich Buckley swears up and down he had done the original, and John Buscema says he did it. Oh, he didn't say it, but he had done a recreation, and the person who had done that recreation had mentioned that John had said he'd done it. Now the initials on it, because Joe Sinnott had inked it. The initials, because Joe Sinnott would always write the last initial of a name / his last name. Mm-hmm. So B could be Buckler or Buscema. So right. that doesn't give you any clue. So today, you still don't know for sure who did that original Nova One cover. Mm-hmm. But I had Buckler recreated for me just in case. Buscema, I never had a piece done by him, but we had worked out pricing. He had passed away right around the time we were negotiating. But I have some Sal Buscema stuff. So before I get off the commission, so the commission theme would be stuff like the Marvel 2-in-1 Annual 7 we just mentioned. Mm-hmm. I'd also have like a Bob Layton recreate an Iron Man, like Iron Man 127. Is that right? Did I give it to you?
Yes, you did. Yep.
Iron Man 127 was the first Bob Layton commission I had done because I remember that big, huge Iron Man versus all these villains on an island. So he recreated that for me. I found the original colorist from the Iron Man series. I don't know if he did Iron Man 127, but Bob Sharon had worked on the Iron Man series and a lot of other stuff. And he was on Facebook in a Tom Corbett Facebook group. So I found him in a fan page for some Tom Corbett stuff. And we got to talking, and then I finally got him to do some coloring. And I was very apprehensive on him coloring on the original.
Right. I would have been.
I'm sorry?
I would have been as well.
Yeah. But Layton was a good trial because Leighton does a lot. He has recreated this cover more than once, and like the Demon on a Bottle, he's probably got like 12 done. So if he was gonna do this and I didn't like it, I could hire Bob Leighton to do another. And so this 127 was the first go around. And when I got it, I said, well, I got to keep going with this. So I did all my Leighton pieces with Bob Sharon. And then when he was done with those, I decided some other pieces to have done. And so he's done probably, I want to say 200 of my pieces, maybe. Yeah, about 200. And or 150 to 200, somewhere around there. And he's cheap also. And he's using permanent markers. You know, you got to make sure when they're doing the coloring, they know what they're doing. But Bob Sharon's been in the profession since the 70s. So, and he's quick and he's cheap. And so I wanted to make my recreations different than other people's. So the 127 may have been recreated, maybe I'll throw out a number, maybe 5 times by Bob Leighton. Mm-hmm. But no one else has had the colorist color it the way that I have had done. So this is the different than the other 4.
Wow.
So I didn't have Bob Leighton recreate not only that cover, but I also had him do a themed 2x3 commission with that whole battle scene also. And so that's what I have done with some of my commissions is theme-based stories. Now that'll lead me into the next Bob Leighton, which is Iron Man 150. I decided about 6 months ago to a year ago to try to team up original teams. Mm-hmm. So John Romita Jr., and Bob Leighton. So John Romita Jr. Originally penciled the Iron Man 150 cover back in the day, and Bob Leighton was the original inker. So I tried to team them up again. It was expensive, and so that's the final product of it. Now this one, I had Bob Sharon color a print instead of the original. So the original is still inked, and the print is colored by Bob Sharon. I wanted to see how that would look just with a print colored instead of the original. And so that was my first time I'd ever done it with Bob Sharon. And this is my second piece with Romita and Leighton. I'm working on a third one right now. But Bob Leighton had recreated this cover probably 10 times, I'm exaggerating, maybe 6 times on his own. Mm-hmm. With no John Romita pencils. And John Romita Jr.'s pencils have changed a little since the 1980s. But I wanted to get the team together and show that these guys still do good work together. Maybe Marvel will get their act together and start getting some of these miniseries or something done with these professionals that still have it.
Right.
But that's what I've been doing. So I have a couple other pieces, Bob Hall, Bob Leighton, Al Milgram, Brett Breeding. They're all working together on covers they originally done in the 1980s and getting those teams back together. So we'll see how they come out. They're still working on them.
Now, was the Romita Jr. and the Leighton piece, was that one of those recent? Like you just said, I think one of them was posted on a Facebook group recently, or maybe in the last 6 months or so.
That one's the most recent one you just posted. That one I had done probably 3-4 months ago. Okay. And I had 127, the one where he's putting on the armor in stages.
Yeah.
Not 127. It's I don't have it in front of me.
I know which one you're talking about, though.
29, I think it is. It's around there. And so it's a big figure, and it has 4 panels to the left of him putting on his armor. That was the first time I tried that. That was probably done 9 months ago to a year ago. Okay. That's been posted on Facebook too. Bob Leighton posts them. So when he does the stages of them, he likes to post them on his Facebook page also.
Well, I think
it's very expensive though. So I'll never see my money back. I don't think I'll ever see my money back on those commissions. But I had them done knowing I wasn't ever going to sell them, so it didn't matter to me. Right,
but now with the Iron Man 150 though, you still have the original pen and ink piece, and then you've got the colored print. Mm-hmm. So you kept it. I mean, that was a smart thing to do at the end of the day, not to color the original art, because
I thought so too.
Right. I mean, if it was ever good, I mean, clearly it would be almost impossible to think that they're going to be teamed up again. But to have that done as a recreation with both of them doing it, that's something that we'll appreciate and value over time. But if you had colored it, that might have changed people's feelings about it. I mean, that's something we we talked about on Sunday was sometimes when you see colored artwork, you know, by like an Olaf piece on a published work, you kind of have second thoughts about it. But having that piece that you've got as the commission done the way you had it done, I mean, I can't see how that thing doesn't appreciate long. You know, this is one of the classic Marvel covers from that period.
I agree, and I'll never be able to afford the original. So I thought,
no,
and I mentioned this in the Comic Art Fan Facebook group once when I was posting recreations that I'll spend $30,000 on recreations, and I'll get 10 to 12 of them done, and or more, and or one published cover. Mm-hmm. So one published Iron Man cover, or 12 recreations done the way I like them. Mm-hmm. And I prefer doing that for now, anyways. I'm keeping the guys I admire busy, and it's a relationship. So it's not just a recreation. Tell me when you're done. We talk all the time, through email, or I interview them and get published interviews done with them, and I get them work. Because of the people I've been in communication with, I've been approached through Comic Art Fan. By the way, I had a couple of things posted up there, and a publisher would call or message me through Comic Art Fan and ask me if I had the contact information for Arvell Jones, Ron Wilson, Keith Pollard. He was doing a Dark Horse miniseries and wanted the covers done by those guys, and so I hooked them up, and they did them. So, so your site helped them, and I put them in touch with them.
You were Patreon before Patreon existed. You were hooking people up. You were the guy giving everybody the money, to keep them going. I mean, I love it. Again, that's why Shaun, you have a very, very unique story and philosophy on art collecting that, because commissions typically turn people off at the end of the day. They have one bad experience and they're done. Even, I don't know, you hear it all the time, but you've made your whole hobby based on getting commissions and recreations and engaging with the artists directly. And that just, again, it turns people off. You always, it's almost like you don't hear enough of the positive stories. You always kind of hear the negative stories, but with you, it's like, if you like you said, you've got 1,200 artworks and 85% of them are commissioned. So you've had, by and large, all positive experiences with the commissions and recreations that you've done. It's astounding. You've been able to keep that focus for so long, and you haven't veered off in any one way. I mean, how many commissions do you have out there actively today?
I would say not finished, probably still being worked on, probably 6 or 7. I have a huge one with Walt Simonson right now. When he was available in fact, it's been a year. When he was available last year, I jumped on it, talked him into, because he was just doing 11 by 17 pieces, and I said, "What if I throw enough money at you that you'll do one huge 4 by 5 foot piece?" And it took a lot of money to do, but I did it. It's the most expensive commission I ever got. It's still being worked on, and I can't wait to see it. But it's
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I know you've seen some probably posted on your Facebook group. There was one busy one with Thor with a bunch of images around the sides of it that were done recently, probably about a month ago.
Right. Just that's not my Facebook group. That's it's what is it? Frank Giela's a few other people. I don't post as much as I should on there, but no, he started that one. That's why I don't have a forum on CAF. I just felt like groups and things are just too much work. It's enough work trying to manage CAF. I'll let other people handle the communications like that out there. And there's enough Facebook groups that the CAF doesn't need to have one. It would just confound and muddy the whole Facebook group area that everybody else is doing a much better job at it. But I do know which ones you're talking about, though. That's going to be, I can't even imagine what that's going to look like. What is it, another year or two out?
No, he supposedly started it last week.
Shoot.
We'll see. It was going to be a month ago, but something came up where he was doing an auction or something, some charity auction, and asked me if it was okay if he could delay it a month. And I said, sure. I mean, it's been a year.
It's a month at that point.
Yeah, and I know from the pieces I've seen posted that it's going to be nice. So and this is the part I like about commissions and recreations. He'll bounce ideas off at me, ask me for my thoughts, and so he'll send me thumbnails, and I'll tell him the characters I'd like to see, the theme that's going to happen, and then he'll throw an idea at me, and I either like it or don't like it. In this particular instance, he had thrown an idea at me that wasn't what I was looking for, so I threw one back at him, and he liked it better. So we worked through that, and we all know what we're expecting now. But none of the commissions, no matter how much you think you or envision it to look like, they've never come out the way you thought they would. Most of the times they're better. So I expect this one's probably going to be in that category. So I'm very happy to see that one done. So it's a lot of the commission stuff I'm having done. Did we cover most of the stuff?
As far as the images that you sent me, and we've got a few more, but had you worked with Walt before, or was this the first time?
This is the first, I rarely write to an artist. After reading a story, I think this is the second artist I ever wrote to after reading something that I wrote or emailed, I should say, through a publication criticism. And he was writing a series called Warcraft, probably about 15 years ago. And the artist on it, I did not like. And so I wrote him a nasty email. Told him to get rid of that guy. And he didn't respond, but he remembered. So that's not how our relationship started. So that's. But I went through Spencer Beck a year ago, and but I had already had Walt Simonson's email address. Someone else had given it to me years ago, and I just never corresponded with him because he's always busy, and he wasn't doing commissions, and he won't sell his artwork. So it's like just write a nice Christmas card or something. But when he opened up his commission schedule, that's when I jumped on it and I emailed him and started communicating that way. Wow. So this will be the first piece I ever got from him. Some of the artists I don't have that I've been centering on are, I had I had a bad experience with John Byrne's agent. I got a commission done probably 10, 12 years ago. I liked it so much. We worked through that. He told me that the commission schedule was like a year out. I wanted to get back in that line. 3 years later, I emailed him back and said, it can't be that long. Is there an opening? I see other people posting commissions all this time. He didn't like my attitude about that, and we argued and argued, and I never got another piece done by John Byrne. I did buy one secondhand, so I have two pieces. George Perez was tough to get a hold of. I did get a couple of commissions done by him, but later in life, not from the early 2000s. I would love to have picked up some pieces by him. Trying to think of any other artists. Commission-wise, I think I've got everybody I really want. At least a representative piece.
Right. Well, at 1,200 pieces, you've pretty much got everybody. You should have everybody that you were after. And
your site helped me realize how many I had. I had no idea how many pieces I had until you asked me for this interview. I went on into your gallery, or it's not the gallery, but it's
the dashboard where it has the stats and everything.
Yes, that page made me realize, first off, how much I spent. I was like, whoa. And how many I had. I had never realized how much I'd spent on this stuff because that's not the reason I was doing it. And the 1,200 pieces I was off by about 400. I had no idea I had that many pieces. So that was a nice eye opener. The reason why most of my art isn't public was because there was a point about 5 or 6 years ago where I was getting, and I do this too, by the way, email somebody through your site and ask them, will you sell this? Can you put me in touch with that person? Blah, blah, blah. So I'm guilty of doing it myself, but I was getting too many of that. So I closed down, 90% of my gallery and left a token couple of pages of commission stuff up on there.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. I'm putting a link to your gallery in the chat right now, just so anybody who wants to pop over there can. But I saw that you only had about 40 pieces of art in your calf, and I thought that was a little odd, but I get it. I mean, it's I would probably turn a lot of galleries off if I was getting a lot of inquiries, and it was just a lag on your time.
You'll know that I have a lot because I think the folder that's up there right now that's available to everybody is something like commissions number 30, meaning I have 29 others somewhere. So that's That's how it is right now. But I love the site. I'm glad you did it. I think what you're doing today, with your weekly auctions and what you're doing on Facebook is outstanding.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of yours now. So,
well, I was really happy just being the mechanic behind the scenes for so long. But once COVID started, I felt like somebody had to kind of step up and do something to fill everybody's, the void that we were all feeling, and also the creators and the dealers and everybody. I mean, that's what the Comic Art Live shows were about too, was just trying to create opportunity for everybody to keep the whole ball rolling while we didn't have shows to go to. And I don't know. I mean, I kind of owe all that to COVID, or I would never have gotten out of the garage. I would have just stuck in. I was happy just being behind the scenes and not being in front of everything. But I think that it's, for me, it's like the best thing that's happened to me, being able to get out in front and just talk with everybody and get to know, because I've seen your collection many times, and I know we've emailed, here and there, but it's been fun, getting to know all these people that have been using the site for so long, and that I really only corresponded with via email. And I would tell people, just email me, don't call me. People have my phone number. Like, you just email me. It'll be easier for me to get back to you in an orderly way versus trying to talk directly. And now I'm probably on the phone 2 hours a day, whether it's with just, the dealers that I've been trying to work more with to kind of, because I've been getting a lot more dealer work too since this has all started, whether it's redesigns or people coming to me with, needing new work. And it's been fun. It's a different way for me to approach the hobby that, I really was reclusive and just happy to not be, just be the guy who owned CAF and he didn't have to get to know me. But no, I don't know. Like, I really was pretty introverted leading up to this, but no, I'm glad. I am very glad that everybody is having a good time with all this stuff. That's why when I saw your comment last night when you were in the car, it's like, oh man, I don't want people driving in their car trying to claim artwork. That's just not the way I want things to go.
It was on speaker, so that's why I was able to. But when I went to the screen at the stoplight and went to go look at the comment, that's why it was misspelled words, is because I had no time to type. I had to get back to driving. But when I got home, it was a different story. That's when I got to the end of your auction where they do all the negotiating, and that actually worked out better. So I got a better discount.
It did. So,
yeah, and Anthony's, you got the right guys up there, Mike and Anthony.
When we started it, I figured I'd start with them because to me they had the least to lose, because they have big inventories and they've got, and I know that they're willing to negotiate. So I felt like if this thing just flops, then I didn't screw anybody over, and I knew them both very well. I mean, Anthony, I built Anthony's site 16 years ago. We've been good friends, and I just felt like if I was going to mess up anything for anybody, if I do it with a friend, they're never going to hate me. And so at least, but it worked out at the end of the day. And I knew that their personality, honestly, when I thought it up, I thought for sure they would both turn me down, because I know that, it's not like they, dealers all are very competitive with one another. And Anthony and Mike kind of deal in the same things, like Albert deals in the same things. And I thought for sure when I pitched it to them both, they'd be like, screw that guy. I don't want to be on the same show with him. I mean, that's the last guy I'd want to be on sharing screen time with. And they both were like, they were like, that's great. I want to go against that guy. And now you get Albert in there, I can tell you they're both like, nah, I don't want to go against Albert. So it's like, yeah, they don't want to have to deal with Albert's inventory and probably Albert's snarky wit that would, put them in their places. So, but I'm going to force him to at some point, because Albert would like to do it once or twice he said he won't do the memes though. He won't do anything fun. He's just going to be all business and just destroy the competition.
Yeah, no, I watched it from the first night, and I commented on, I believe, the first night where I felt bad for you. It was tough to control them. But
it wasn't what I was expecting at all, or it was what I was expecting. I thought it was going to be hard to figure them out, and but they've kind of got a little camaraderie now. They'll help each other out a little bit. When Mike sees Anthony floundering a little bit on something, he'll throw in, he'll tell him something about the art that he might not have said already, and it works out really well. I like the way it's kind of flowing right now. So. We'll see.
What would be really nice as a comment from me is that if your website had some type of, I know you have a want out there,
the want list. Yep.
Yeah, but I don't think I've never seen anybody else's want list, so I think you have to go look for it, or
you do, yeah. Well, if they make a want list, then there's a link in their profile to their want list. But Yeah, we don't make it very easy. You can search all want lists. There is a want list search. You can just key in an artist's name and a title, for instance, and it'll show you anybody who's got a match for that. So I think it's a really good feature that nobody really knows about, right? If you've got art to sell, you should just go over to the CAF want list and search it. You're bound to find a dozen people that probably are looking for what you have to sell. But have I made that very easy and clear? No, it's back to I'm a better mechanic than I am writing how-to manuals. So but it's there. It's all there for anybody who wants to make use of it. And I always feel like, boy, if the dealers were smart and they couldn't move some inventory, just hop over to the CAF want list and key in some searches, and you're bound to find buyers for the artwork you're trying to sell. So again, it's my shortcoming. I really need that. I need somebody who isn't Maureen or I coming in and saying, do this, that, and the other, and I'll be like, wow, I've been looking at this thing for 18 years and I never thought of that. So that's really what I need. That's the feedback I get from the people who use the site. It usually helps me out more than anything, because I always built it the way I wanted to, right? I worked in a bubble, and that was good in some ways and bad in many other ways. So, yeah.
Well, do you think you'd be hosting auctions on your website direct?
Believe it or not, there is an auction platform on CAF. I've never promoted it, and I kind of stopped. I stopped promoting it when it didn't really take off. It sort of worked initially, and then it just didn't, and I didn't really. But it's still there. Believe it or not, there's this thing called the CAF Marketplace. But I really make it hard, and I really meant to just get rid of it because I don't promote it. I'd see people put stuff in it, but I don't really have a way to super promote it because I pulled all the PR things out of it because I didn't think anybody would ever use it. But it's been in there for 10 years. It looks just like eBay. I know you'd be shocked.
I had no idea.
I don't even. Yeah.
I think what you're doing now is a good lead into that, because the part that people complain the most about is that the delay of the bidding. So if you have people on YouTube versus Facebook, the delays are different. And maybe if it was on one site, they'll all be the same.
Yeah, I mean, that would be one. But the thing is, when I built it, and then I really felt like at the time that I didn't want to be responsible for commerce. I didn't want to have to be some kind of a gateway or conduit for it at the time. I mean, I guess if I look at it now, it would have been a wise thing to do. But it just felt like another clerical thing that I would have to manage, and then you have to manage issues, between buyer and seller. And I felt like, all right, how am I going to collect enough money to make it worth the while to get that deep into it? I like doing dealers because at the end of the day, you're now dealing with Anthony and you're dealing with Mike, and I'm kind of out of it. I can step in if there's a problem. There hasn't been a problem, up till now. But at least I'm not handling the financial side of it or the delivery side of it. Like eBay, they had PayPal in the middle and all. It just would have, I don't know. But honestly, God, if anybody actually went to underneath the art for sale menu, there is something that says CAF Marketplace, and it's there. But I'm not going to promote it because I should just take it out of there. Because people stumble into it and put something in there, but there's no way to find it. So, but I like the way things are going now. I mean, like I told everybody, I always felt like I was this big passive site for selling. I knew CAF is responsible for probably like 3 million in sales every month, whether it's pushing people to the dealer sites or the auction houses or eBay, collector to collector. But I had no way to quantify all that because other than eBay, I had no mechanism to see that I was actually selling. And then we do the Comic Art Live show, and it forced people to mark things as sold so I could actually see sales that really happened. And now doing the dueling dealers. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun for me because, at the end of the day, I really am a marketing guy. And so this has been fun. It's like just trying to find ways to actually generate leads and have them get to the final sale and see that it happened and know that there was a confirmed sale there. So I don't know, for me, this has been really engaging in a way that I always wanted to, but was always afraid to do it through CAF. So, but yes.
Well, is there anything you want to see again, or you have any more questions? Or
well, I could pull up some more of the commissions because one of the things that you had sent me was that Superman process piece.
Yeah, I was just looking at that right now.
And I made it into 2 separate slides, 2 that weren't colored and 2 that were. I'm not sure if that was the way you. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
this is
pull up.
another process. This was last year. So, I've known Jose Garcia Lopez for 20 years.
Mhm.
And the first commission I ever had from him was probably 5 or 6 years ago, where Joe Rubenstein helped talk him into doing a piece that we'll show you later. But this one here is DC Special Series number 5. This is from 1977, I believe. The original is. And so I had Lopez do the pencil. Joe inked it. So you're showing pencils and inks. And I went through and I always try to get images of the process. That's why you have those.
Mhm.
So I'll scan the pencils in high 600 DPI here at the office, pack it up, send it off to Joe. Sometimes I'll have them sent direct if there's a high enough resolution image of it that the artist will send me before he sends it to the inker. But in this case, I wanted it to scan myself. So I scanned the pencils myself, sent it to Joe. Joe took a low image inking process. Sometimes he'll use just colors straight, as you can see there with the greens and the purples, instead of blacks for ink, and sends it to me for comment. And sometimes I'll have a comment, sometimes I won't. In this case, I did not. I told him he was doing great work. And the next image, I think you'll have the color. Yeah, the two colors. Okay. So the one on the left was the first coloring job Joe did. And the only thing that bothered me on it was the background green underneath the arms. If you can see there, I told him that I thought if there was lightning going off in the background, it should be a lighter color than the ground underneath Superman. And so he lightened up the green ground underneath the arm work for me, because that was the only comment I had for him. But that's the give and take we go through. And he didn't complain. He understood what I wanted. And it's not just Joe. I've done it with Rich Buckler, and I didn't send you those images, but I've given feedback like that where I'd like to see some slight changes done. And here I think the right image on the right captures the essence of the original cover better.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe did some nice colors on that. They're not the original flat colors of the published Superman cover, but I like the way this stands out here. The other cover he did with Lopez was the Superman versus Wonder Woman.
Oh, yeah.
That's the first one they did. So this one here, Jose Garcia Lopez did the pencil work. Joe again inked and colored it, and this time we went back and forth. And on Joe's recommendation, he used black inks on Superman and Wonder Woman, but Uncle Sam is done in brown inks to give it a little more faded look in the background, like the published cover. And then he did the coloring job. So this was the first piece they worked together for me on, and we probably got about 15 pieces total. And he's one of those guys Jose Garcia Lopez was one of those artists I grew up on Superman and Action Comics. So I jumped at the opportunity when he mentioned he had an opening years ago. Other pieces that like the Star Wars #2. That's if you don't mind bringing that. That's Rick Hoberg. He actually lives near me, so he's a local artist that I used to see at comic conventions and did artwork. He was on Green Arrow with Mike Grell. He was the artist for Green Arrow at the time I met him, and I had no idea he did the Star Wars. In fact, once I was talking to him probably about 6-7 years ago, he mentioned he did the original Star Wars covers, like issues 2, 4, 7, and he did like 5 of the first 12. It blew me away because I'd never seen the autograph on him. So I helped, once again, comics.org, identify the covers to this series, and had Rick recreate it, and he did the whole thing here. Here's an example of an artist doing the pencil, inks, and colors. And so that's what Rick did here. And this is the first one he did for me. So he did the logos, he did the word balloons, and they're all hand done. They're not paste-ons. And then when he did the second one for me, he was like, "Man, that was a lot of work. Can I just get rid of the word balloons?" And I would always say yes. And so then it got to the point where there's no logo anymore. No balloons, no logo, just the artwork. And in a way, I like that also because it frees up. You get to see the full image not blocked by word balloons or logos, and so they sometimes add things that you like. If you look on this cover, if I allowed him to do that here, is Star Wars #2 lower left hand column, lower left hand corner. There's that UPC code box there. If that was gone, you'd see more image of the alien that he would be just recreating. So that's some of the things I like. And if I want to later, I could add on a logo as a paste on, but I didn't want to do that here. Next, what haven't we shown yet?
There's that Grell. It's got Superman and.
Oh yeah, Superman Legion of Superheroes Treasure Edition. This was a process because this is huge. This is 2x3, easy.
Wow.
And I had to spend a lot to do it, but and it was at a point where it was like 2008, I think. The economy was crashing. I was thinking, why am I going to spend all this money on a piece of artwork? But I knew Mike was at the top of his game. He did everything here. He did the inking and the coloring, the whole ball of wax. And he had done other pieces for me. I probably got 15 pieces by Mike, recreations, that is, from Warlord to Superman, Superboy, and Legion. This, I always liked that Treasury wraparound cover. And Paul Levitz has the original, the writer, and he won't sell it. Yeah, I assume everybody knows that. Hopefully I didn't let that out. But the recreation, the way he's done this, it blew me away. In fact, Mike has made several prints and posters of it and sells them at the conventions now. So I enjoy this one a lot. It looks, the colors are a little off from the original, but who cares? Another piece that we could go over is maybe the Amazing World of DC Comics #15. Mike Netzer.
Sorry, I'm trying to see that one. My slides are so small on the screen, it makes it hard for me to pick them out.
I labeled it Amazing World of DC Comics 15.
All right. Sorry, I'm looking through it.
It's okay.
Somehow I might not have that one.
That's okay. We've got plenty. I think we got a couple of more others if you want.
I can pull up the ones that I haven't shown. Yeah, how about this?
Okay, this one has a story. That's why I gave it to you. So this is Marvel Team Up 83. Mm-hmm. So this is where I wanted to use Rich Buckler and Bob McLeod. So Rich wanted to pencil and color it, and Bob wanted to ink it. And so I used them both. And when Rich got the inks back, he wasn't happy.
Oh, no.
So he re-inked it over Bob McLeod. So Bob McLeod, I don't know how much of it he re-inked. I don't remember. But I know that Rich Buckler was very upset with it, and he didn't want to do it again with Bob. Bob doesn't. I never told Bob that. But now that Rich is gone, who cares? So Rich, at the time, with Rich Buckler, and some artists do this. Here's some other insight. Sometimes an artist will take on apprentices. And Rich Buckler took on an apprentice here. So like the coloring of most of his commissions are done by an apprentice that he'll fine-tune later. In this case, it was also done by an apprentice named Tony and worked underneath Rich. In fact, I had found out after Rich had passed away how many pieces Tony had actually colored for me. Almost all of them were done by Tony, with Rich going over them, making sure they were done right. But sometimes an artist gets too busy, would rather make more money, just like in publishing, penciling than coloring or inking, and would use assistants. Mm-hmm. That was the case with Rich Buckler. Sometimes they'll do it, they'll have some ghosting going on, but I've not had that experience yet.
That was just what Marcus mentioned too.
I haven't seen any of the comments, and that's only because my screen is a different size. So if people have been commenting and they think I'm ignoring them, I apologize because I haven't seen any of them.
Oh, you don't see them when I pull them up on screen either?
Well, no, because I have to get my glasses because you're on my laptop is really small.
Oh,
so
got it.
It's my wife's. That's why I wanted to use the other one so I could see it.
All right. Well, sorry. I'll try to read. Anyone that's a lot of people are just commenting on how great the pieces are more than anything. Those are the ones I'm showing. But okay. So no real questions. If it's a question, I will definitely read it out to you. But yeah, there are a lot of people who love the Grell commission. They were like it's their favorite Grell cover. Yeah. Somebody commented earlier about the Warlord on the wall too.
Yeah, Warlord.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Are you still there?
Yep, still here.
All right. So that Warlord 7 is the first Grell comic book I ever bought. I know who owns the original. I've thrown money at him left and right, and he won't sell it. I've tried. He's on CAF, by the way. Mm-hmm. And so this 7 I had recreated was the first recreation I had done by Mike. And this was the first Mariah, and that's the Shakira. And so I put them in one frame. It's the first time I ever had two pieces framed together. So, yeah, that's in my office. I get a lot of comments about Shakira. Is she wearing a bathing suit? That's the first comment I always get. Yes, she is. But, yeah.
Well, when anybody's talking to you at the office, that's all they can look at is the art on the wall right behind you.
Yeah, I'm chastising them, and they're looking at that.
You're distracting them.
Yes. So another piece, if you want to throw up Nova 14, I'll talk about that for a second. Here's another Nova 14 cover recreation was done by Sal Buscema and colored by Bob Sharon on the original. But Sal Buscema was the interior artist. He wasn't the cover artist. George Perez was the original cover artist, and I couldn't get George Perez to do the recreation. So I've done this a couple of times. I will try to get the interior artist to do their version of the cover. And I don't tell them to do a light box. I let them decide how they want to approach it. And in Sal's instance, he almost did a complete recreation, which looks great. It was one of those first Nova comics I ever bought. It's probably within the first month of me collecting comics. So I have an attachment to this issue. And he captured George Perez, I thought, quite a bit. So here's an instance where, and this was before Sal had a rep. Mm-hmm. He has Catskills comics right now, same as Mike Grell.
Yep.
I was dealing with both of those people before they went to Catskills. And this was one of those pieces. Right now, Sal's wait list is probably 9 months to a year. So to get back in line and wait another year, I always get back in line, but it's been a while. And I have probably 10 pieces by Sal. Mm-hmm. So that's just an instance of where a recreation was done by a different artist, but he had some connection to the issue.
That's beautiful. And I'm working with Catskill now too. I'm building their site as we speak. So they'll have
You say that because the only person who's emailed me about this interview besides you was Scott.
Oh, really?
He had emailed me saying, "I'm looking forward to seeing you tonight." So he's probably watching right now.
That's funny. I don't think I've ever seen Scott comment in any of the chats that I've done. So but he's told me he's watched the show. Maybe he's watching them after. I don't know, but yeah, I've known Scott for a long time. I was really happy when he approached me about redoing his site because it's it's a little bit of a dated site, and I think having it integrated with CAF will be good for the artists that he reps. And I know since I've read it, I know that, like you said, Sal's list is probably it's either closed or it's a year out. And what are you gonna do?
But his draftmanship is still right there. I mean, he's still got it. And sometimes you get into an age group like I dealt with in the Golden Age time period when I was getting all those commissions done. Sometimes you had to watch out that their draftmanship was waning. And Russ Heath was not one of those. Some of the Golden Age people were still at the top of their game in the 70s and 80s. And right now, most of those 1970s artists are around 70, just creeping over 70, and they still have their hands, which is great.
Yeah, I did have a question for you. Alfredo wanted to know how many of the 1,200 pieces do you have hanging on the walls? I know Alfredo hangs a lot of art on his wall. So
okay, so it was Dino who did your show where he was talking about framing and all that.
We've had a couple different people that have talked about framing.
Yeah, well, there's somebody who took it on. He was in his pajamas and he put it on the ground and he's taking.
That was Mikhail. Mikhail was here earlier. He might still be here. Yep.
Well, I felt his pain because that's how I started when I was getting all this artwork done. I was like, I got to frame it to preserve it. Mm-hmm. And the framing itself is expensive. Like I'll have a $500 piece of recreation from a Golden Age time period, a $500 piece and a $400 frame. Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, if I didn't spend on the frame, I could have bought another piece. Why am I doing it? I'll frame it later. So I didn't learn that until the 40th piece I framed. And now I only frame real special pieces. Otherwise, if I'm moving the screen, I'm sorry. I'm just pulling out. I'm sure everybody has one of these. Oh, sorry.
They're all going in there.
So yeah, everything is in these sleeves. I'm trying to see if I can get them backwards. And so they're all in here for now until I have the time period to frame them. But I'm out of wall space. I have 3 places I have them. I have them at my house, my mom's house, and my office. And my house is littered with them. But I probably have 40 to 50 pieces total frame. That's it. And they're all in, UV glass.
Sure.
Acid free this and acid free that, and framing is an art form itself. Trying to match up the frame and the matting and all that to make it match and pop the piece can make or break a piece too. So I bought pieces through auctions like at Heritage or eBay, and they'll come framed and they look terrible. They'll be in these metal cheap frames, and I immediately take them out of that. I'd rather have them in a portfolio than in a really bad frame.
Right.
But I have. I'm sorry.
Well, we had a sci-fi fantasy art discussion on Tuesday, and one of the collectors clearly liked to put these dark mats on things, and it was mentioned more than once that when one of the other people on the panel had gotten artwork that was still framed from him, the first thing they did was change the mat because they just hated the way this one guy would mat all of his artwork. I mean, to me, it looked fine, but it was just, it was better when it was changed to a different matte color. So I know what you're saying.
Yeah, well, the frame shop I have have used in the past also as an artist. So I had a Russ Heath once where an army man, I still have it. I just didn't give you the image. Mm-hmm. And there's a battle scene it looks like from the Korean War, and a guy is shooting at an enemy, and the bullet goes to the image edge and then in through the matting. So the person had matched the coloring up through the matting to make it more 3D-ish, to make the image pop out more. So the bullet actually is coming off the frame through the matting all the way to the frame. Mm-hmm. That was something I might entertain doing again sometime down in the future. But right now I probably have 30 portfolios full of artwork. It's a lot.
Matching the number of galleries.
I always ask for new portfolios every birthday and get them all different sizes.
Hey, and Alfredo did point out that you have 1,200 commissions or recreations, but in many cases you could really say that's 2,400 actual commissions or even 3,600 based on the number of times you had penciler, inker, and colorist. So even though it's 1,200 finished pieces, you really had to go through the process of negotiating, maybe double that, and some of those cases, especially when you had the pieces colored after the fact.
And sometimes people wonder why I don't have all my interviews published, because I have hundreds of interviews that I've done over the years, and I try to publish them when I have time. And running a business, having a 13 and 11-year-old son, and then also trying to get those commissions done is very time consuming, in addition to doing comic book research. So the interviews are the things that suffer the most out of my hobby, is that I can never get them published because I also have to find a transcriber, have to go through the editing process and then submit it. And then it takes a long time. The calls themselves are a couple of hours, but the process after that is the time-consuming piece. So some of these artists that I've been showing you, I've done interviews on, never published them, and they're probably wondering why. And it's because I just haven't had the time to assemble them and submit them.
Right. No, I'm with you. If you ever saw that documentary I did on the New York Comic Arts Gallery, I released it at the beginning of this year, but it was only 3.5 hours of video interviews. But once you took that and tried to condense that into an hour-long documentary, I probably spent 30 hours editing, 3.5 hours of video to just get down to the story that I wanted to tell. And, but yeah, it took so much longer than I ever would have imagined. I mean, it came out great, but it made it so I don't think I'll ever do another one. Or if I do them, they're only going to be one a year, because it just was so involved to actually do something well and do it right. And yeah,
I did a documentary. I did a documentary called Archie's Betty in 2000. I did the film in 2011. It came out in 2015. The post-production part was the most painstaking, boringest part. I had, if you've done a documentary like you mentioned, you actually have to transcribe the whole film. Mm-hmm. So you have to write every word, every scene down, and then you have to go through the fair use and all this crap. So it was. I don't. That's why I've never done another one. It's one documentary is enough. It took way too long, too much time.
I didn't go that far, not at all. I didn't do any transcribing whatsoever. But no, I mean, I get the process though. So even writing an interview, yeah, I used to do written interviews too, and those took too much time to, because I would conduct the audio interview and then go back and put it all together and then get everybody's approval on it before I'd release it on CAF. And I did that for a year and it just burned me out. That's why this has been the greatest thing, right? Getting online and just talking. It doesn't matter what we talk about, or if we spell somebody's name wrong online or say something wrong, we can't take it back. It's there forever. But yeah, let's look at. I know I've got a few more recreations here.
Yeah, we'll talk about the first piece. The first comic book I ever bought.
You know what? That's because that's actually at the top of the list. I skipped over it earlier. But can I show the published piece first?
Sure.
Okay.
So Captain Marvel 49 is the first comic book I ever bought off the newsstands. Now I had comics prior to that. My mom would bring home Richie Rich and such, but this was the first one I actually went to the newsstand and couldn't find any baseball cards because they sold out. And I went to the comic book rack and there was Captain Marvel 49. And it wasn't the only issue I bought, but it's the only one I remember. So Captain Marvel 49 started me collecting comics vividly, actively. And so when I found the original cover and bought it directly from Al Milgrom, I paid a lot. At the time, it was a lot. And the most I'd ever spent on a piece of original art, not a recreation or commission, I was ecstatic because it was the first comic I'd ever had. So I had bought that cover after having the recreation done. So the recreation was done first. And here's an instance where I had Al Milgrom pencil it. Now, the original published cover, as you can see, was done by Milgrom and Leigh Aloha. But Terry Austin and Milgrom did the interiors. So when it came time to have the cover recreated, did I send you a recreation?
Yes, you did. I'm going to pull that up right here.
Okay, so it's probably it's in stages too. Okay, so the pencils were done by Milgrom, who wanted to also ink and color it, but I said I'd like to get Terry Austin to ink it because he did the interior, and I would like to get that team together. And so Terry did the inking, and then Milgrom did the coloring, and that's how the stages were. And Terry Austin did a couple of pieces for me, inked a couple of Milgrom pieces for me back in 2005. So 16 years ago. Now you can't get Terry to do anything, but back then right. he was open to working with me on a couple of pieces. And so, some people have asked me why don't I sell the recreation since I have the original. It's because to me it's like a totally different piece because it's in color and it pops just like the original. So I have a few Captain Marvel covers because of those memories from that time period, because I did follow that series from that point on and enjoyed the Jim Starlin Avengers 7. So did I have that there? Yeah. So I'd also send you the Avengers Annual 7 recreation too.
Yeah, let me
and that's just another example of Starlin and Milgrom. When I was telling you they were in Africa doing, Jim Starlin was in Africa and he had some time off. This was one of those pieces.
Wow.
So they all look like that quality anyways. And then I had Milgrom because I'm into that, like I said, that Captain Marvel theme. I sent you Captain Marvel 49 commission, and this is all Milgrom doing the pencils, inks, and colors, and it's just the theme of the from that issue of 49 where they were all fighting. You probably didn't have that.
That's what I'm double checking. I don't know if I might not have saved that one. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I think we're almost. Oh, there's one more. There's Iron Fist 14.
Iron Fist. Yep, that was in there.
Okay, so I had Iron Fist 14 recreated by Milgrom. He did the whole ball of wax here too. He never had the original cover, by the way. That was never sent back to him. So he never owned the original, even though he did it all. For some reason, never made it back to him. But the recreation is fine by me. It's another example of Milgrom doing some nice work. His colors were very nice.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh, there's one more. So Nova 25. You have Nova 25?
I do have that one, yeah.
Okay, so this one is Keith Pollitt. Now, Keith, I've known for years, and he's done probably 20 pieces for me. And this is just one of those examples where I wanted Nova. I can't remember the original inker, but it was a Filipino artist. I believe it was. I can't remember. But anyways, he did the whole thing. He didn't want Keith didn't want to ink his own work, but I talked him into inking his own work, and he does great work. And Bob Sharon colored it afterwards, and so that type of. In fact, Keith is doing a piece for me right now on a Spider-Man commission, not a recreation. But Keith,
nice.
One of those underrated artists. I think he's improved over the years versus back then. So when he does his recreations, you'll notice a couple of little changes from the original cover. I say that's okay. They usually ask me if they can update it because some of these artists don't want to just light box the original. They see some flaws. An artist their eye will go immediately to the flaws. Having a drafting background myself, I completely understand that. So if you've done a drawing or you're a painter and you look at a piece, we look at it as, wow, this looks great. The artist usually looks right at the mistake.
Mm-hmm, of course.
and will want to change that. And they'll ask me that every time if they can change that. I always say yes.
Hey, Rich Cirillo and Daniel Garens both said that Rudy Nebris was the.
Thank you. Yes, I know it was. I mean, the original is nice too, but I liked Keith's own inks.
I don't blame you.
I think that covers. Do you have anything left on that?
The other. I did have one other piece.
Yeah, that was the commission I was just talking about.
I know. I didn't think I had it, but I found it. I'm sorry.
I like the way you grouped it. So the way you're grouping is great. So this is the commission process again. So the left-hand one is a thumbnail, and I with Milgram I usually make some changes. I think you got the final product. Sometimes they'll send me 3 choices.
Really?
They'll send me because they're all pencils images, and they'll just give me 3 choices to pick, and they'll even label them A, B, or C. Which one do you like the best? And that's the way Milgram usually works. And I pick this one you're looking at, and then he'll ink it, send it for approval, and then he'll color it. And so that all takes probably 3 months for Milgram a piece.
Wow.
The longest commission so far, and I say so far because I still don't have it, is Jim Sherman. Jim Sherman did a Legion. He was the original artist on Legion of Superheroes with, I think Jack Abel was the original inker from that time period. Mike Grell covers with Jim Sherman and Jack Abel interiors. Love that time period. He also did like Challengers of the Unknown back then. About 4 years ago, I talked him into doing commission.
Hey, you know what? I'll tell you what I'm finding unique in most of the cases when you're talking about commissioning an artist. You're also stating that they're sending you the things for your approval. Now, a lot of people don't do that. I think a lot of people coast. They say what they want, and they're not as involved or engaged in the commission process. But it sounds more like you are really coming in an editorial level kind of function or an art director function, and asking to see the steps before you could have them commit to going further. Is that true in all cases, or just with certain artists do you work that way?
Certain artists like Bob Layton won't ask me unless it's a commission. Mm-hmm. Commission, he'll bounce ideas, and I'll send him ideas, and then he'll use those to make whatever he's going to do. But on like recreations, no, he won't. But like in Jim Sherman's case, he actually sent me a sketch of what we were envisioning for the Legion of Superheroes for approval. I approved it. He's still in a penciling process. He does advertising, so he's in the entertainment business. So he works for Hollywood. He did like the Men in Black series. So the Men in Black series, he would do like storyboarding and all that stuff. So he's busy, and so I don't mind waiting because I don't have to pay him in advance. So I just whenever he's ready, he's ready. Mm-hmm. But a majority of the artists, because we're spending, if it's a small, $200 commission, they usually don't ask you anything. But if you're spending thousands or $1,000 on a commission, they usually want to make sure you're happy. So I don't recall anything I don't recall ever getting something I was so unhappy with that. No, that's not true. There was a Michael Golden episode when he first came back into the industry. After a long hiatus, he came back, and one of his first shows was in Seattle, and he had done a piece that I paid for that I was not happy with, and I immediately got rid of that. That would be the only piece I can recall ever getting where I was so unhappy I didn't want it. And I've never done anything with Michael again.
Yeah.
But anyways, most of them want to make sure you're happy because they want you to come back.
Right. Well, anybody with any business sense is going to want to make sure you're happy. I just wasn't, when I've talked to other people about commissions, you don't always hear that kind of comment. Like they're showing you stuff and waiting for your approval to move on. Like you said, the one artist sending you 3 different potential inking directions they could take the piece, and you're kind of directing them on that. That just seems really, at least for me, I don't hear other commissioning collectors talk about it in that way, and maybe that's how they do it, and they just don't talk about it. But I don't know. I just think that's unique because for me, whenever I've commissioned somebody, I think the one time I was giving heavy direction to them, they said they decided they didn't want to do it because they felt it was too much. I was over directing, and then I think ever since that one, I've always just been rather more laid back, just saying, this is what I want to get, and as long as it's close, I'll be happy. Do whatever you want. And I can't say that I've really seen or gotten like pieces as it was from sketch to pre-ink to finished piece. I mean, I haven't done one in about 5 years, but I don't know. That's why it just seems unique because you really do come off as you're really giving direction, and like with that where the green in the grass was a little too dark, and you lightened it up, and it improved everything. So as your eye, you knew what you wanted. You wouldn't have been happy with the piece if you hadn't have made that change.
Yeah, and so you mentioned it where sometimes if you overthink something, the artist doesn't like it. George Perez was one of those people where I came up with a scenario of Thanos, and it was basically like the Infinity Gauntlet #1 cover, and he turned me down. He was like, "Nah, I don't want to do that," and I've never done anything with him since. But that was one case where they want to do it their own way, and they didn't want any input. And once they heard that I had input, they didn't want to do it. That's the only time I can think of that happened where somebody turned me down for that reason, I think. But yeah, each person has their own quirks and political persuasions, and I have stopped using people over political stances where somebody is voicing their own opinion about some type of politic and are overbearing about it, and it just turned me off enough. And that's from both sides, not just one side.
Right.
Where I stopped using them, and they just they're unaware of that. So they just think that I just am too busy or whatever. But one of those reasons is because I'm sick of reading their stuff on Facebook every day about nothing to do with comic books. We're friends for that reason.
Right. I'm very middle of the road myself, but I have a few very close friends that while we're still friends, I've like hidden any of their descriptions so they don't show up in my feed because I just like a happy, calm Facebook. I don't have time to get into arguments and things myself.
Comics are your escape from politics.
That's right, exactly.
That's my happy place. Don't bring that stuff to my happy place because that's what I'm trying to forget work. Right. I tell my wife all the time. This is my going to the bar after work every day. I don't do that. I'd rather be doing this comic book stuff. But I can go to the bar if you want, but I'd rather avoid doing that and just stay in my happy place. And unless they make the happy place a place you don't want to go to,
right?
And, and there's some voice, some people I don't agree with politically. Even Joe Rubenstein and Bob Sharon are on one side of the spectrum that I'm not, but we get along because even though we have different political persuasions, we don't pound each other over the head with them, and we just
right. Well, it should be all about you have a relationship because of comics. I mean, that should supersede any political conversation at the end of the day. Not that I don't. Again, it's just I have lots of friends who are very polar opposite of me, but we love the hobby so much it doesn't matter. We joke about about things, and it's okay. It doesn't bother me at all. But I'd rather not talk about it when I'm dealing with the comic side of things. Sorry, I was looking through the chat here just to make sure we didn't miss anything. Everybody remembers that. Well, I'm not even going to say anything about the golden piece.
Michael Golden, yeah. Well, it's pretty well known that he's had issues in the past.
Yeah, there was some delays and stuff and misspellings on things, and yeah, that was an interesting moment. But sometimes people are really good at commissions at shows, and other times they're not. And I've seen some artists like just not be really great at show drawings, for instance, and then their take-home stuff is mind blowing. So everybody's a little different.
2005, so it's a long time ago. So I'm sure he's got his act. In fact, he didn't have an agent like he did Renee.
Renee. I know. I'm not even gonna try.
Yeah, she wasn't part of that back then. He was just on his own back then. So yeah, I'm sure he was swamped with commissions. I was like number 2. Mm-hmm. And I think it took him by surprise how many people wanted commissions from him. So he in fact, he left. He didn't do them all at the show. He had to leave and mail them, and that was where the problem started.
Right.
I got mine at the show, and I know the person behind me did not. They got it in the mail about 5-6 months later, and were not as happy either. I don't know what he's doing now. I haven't been in touch with him and haven't done anything with him before. But I loved his work back in the day.
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, well, who didn't, right? I mean, his work really was, it was like seeing Bill Sienkiewicz work. It just shocked you how interesting and different it was. And I mean, he had a style unlike, anybody else. I mean, it's so fluid and, but yeah, no, and you're right. I can't really think of seeing a lot of golden artwork coming out, commissioned or otherwise of late. So I'm not sure, but, yeah, sorry. I just want to make sure I got everybody. I saw a comment from Derek. Derek, I know that I owe you an email, by the way. You emailed me a few days ago, and I just haven't had a chance to reply, but I will get back to you about the Sunday shows. And all right. So Shaun, I think that is every single piece of artwork that you gave me. Oh, there is one other one, and I didn't really look at it close enough to know what the story was. I'll show the one more, and then we'll have covered all the art.
Yeah, commission art. Well, that's the Mike Netzer.
Okay, all right. Because this one I didn't have loaded, and I loaded it up while we were talking. So that's all right.
Amazing World of DC Comics number 15, the fanzine that DC put out back in the 70s. I always liked that cover. And so he went by the name of Mike Nasser back then.
Yep.
He changed it to Netzer. And so I had him do this where he did a combination of pencil and inking. And so he inked the Wonder Woman full figure, and then the background Linda Carter profile is all in pencil. And it's a favorite of mine by him. I mean, and you can see that the style is updated. So if you look at the published cover, that's why I gave you the scan with the published cover versus the recreation, because the recreation of the full figure has some the line work on the inking is a little different. But I think it's better. But yeah, he's done about 10 or 15 pieces for me. I can't remember. This is the first one we did together. As we started getting him more and more, he wanted to drop the inking and stay with just strict pencils. And then it wasn't recreations, it was theme based. So he would take a Defenders cover, for instance, take our published cover and take that theme as if an artist had just given him a thumbnail as a reference for him to come up with his own criteria, and then change the entire cover using the same figures and the same theme. That's where it progressed with him on recreations. And some artists like to do that. Like Pat Broderick was the same way. He originally started doing full recreations, then wanted to change them and do theme based. And that's where he's at today. If he was to be asked to do some type of recreation, he wouldn't do a full blown recreation that you would expect. He would do something based on that original cover.
Well, that's cool, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, there's some of the artists get the types of commissions they don't like to do are ones where you're taking a established character and put him in a scene that would never happen, especially soft porn wise.
I have heard stories the things that have been requested that have been
Yes.
turned down. So
Yes, there's some really imaginative requests out there that I would have never imagined. And with a 13 and 11-year-old in my house, I came, I hate to say this, but I can't even go on the CAF gallery at home. I have to do it at the office because I don't know what's going to pop up on my screen.
well, we've been pretty good about that. I've actually got since the first was it. Oh gosh, I think it was back all the way till the fall. We have moderators now that are regularly.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
but well, it got to a point where I was, I couldn't do it all myself. I mean, I just couldn't look at every single piece of art getting added to CAF. So now we have about a dozen moderators that they can't turn things off, but they can flag it, and it comes into me, and I can eyeball it, either tell the person it's got to be removed from the site or it has to be locked down. So, but it's just been a huge help. I can't thank them enough, because I mean, they're always on the new page, and so they're seeing stuff as it comes in. Even if it's like not like if it's a print, if somebody's uploading prints, they'll let me know that, hey, somebody's uploading stuff that's not originals, and so it has been getting better. I've been,
Wow.
but of course, how can you go back and look at 900,000 artworks that are on the site? But they have gone through. They'll occasionally send stuff that's been on the site for years that I need to remove, and it's tough. A lot of gallery owners, European gallery owners, obviously have a different view on nudity than U.S. collectors might. So it's always kind of touchy. Occasionally we'll do that, and people will just say, "Ah, screw you, close my whole gallery, I'm gone." I don't want to be censored. And it's tough. It's tough because some artists will be using the site to get commissions, and they'll post work that really just is so far outside of comics that, well, I'll just say it's just got to go. You're here to. I like having you here. I'm trying to help you get work. I really don't mind it. A lot of them are premium members, but I'll have to steer them in a direction for to keep things appropriate for the site. So it's tough. I don't like being in that position at all. So it's kind of nice. I feel like when one of the moderators flags something, it's almost like I didn't flag it. I just have to. I deal with the fallout if there is any. But it wasn't me, because that was the other part. When it was me, I felt like, shoot, all right, whatever comes, it's all my fault. Whatever feedback or hate mail I get, it is all me. At least now I look at it as like I got this team of people who are helping me do this. So, but you still probably can't look at it at home with the 13 and 14.
Yeah. Well, one word of advice: if you're working with Bud Root, to make sure to request them not to be nude, because he'll do it nude. Cave Woman is a drawing that he always draws nude, so he's expecting somebody's. If you're asking for a cave woman, you're asking for a nude. He had done that once for me. I asked for a commission. I told him the scenario, gave it back to me. It had nude. I said, "Oh man, I should." So
well, he could probably put clothes on him though if you wanted, but.
Yeah. So just a word of advice: sometimes if you're dealing with somebody like a Bud Root, you may want to mention one way or the other. So, and Bud's a great guy. I mean, he's a fantastic artist. He's just gotten a lot better over the years. I don't know if you're familiar with Bud.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's one of my faves. So.
No, I love his work. Absolutely, but you're right. I mean, you got to say put clothing on her.
He actually drew me in one of his stories.
Really?
Yeah, we had done a comic book.
You've left an impression on him then if you did that.
Yeah, well, I helped him with his furnace, so because his furnace was in trouble, so I had to help him with some advice and some money, of course. And then he dedicated an issue to me in the front, and then drew us in a 3-page sequence, me and my wife. And even used us by name. So I still have those original pages too. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, being drawn in a comic, that's the second time. The other time was with Val Merrick on one of his Dust to he did some type of Kickstarter that he drew me in something too. Those are fun.
Well, all right, that's still on my bucket list then, is to get drawn into a comic book. Darn it.
That's about all I got for you today. But
no, Shaun, it's this was great. This was a whole lot of fun. I hope somebody had said they wanted to what was the contact information they were looking for Ron Wilson. Anybody who has any questions, I mean, I don't want Shaun to get inundated with questions, but for those things, I don't want to put those out via our chat or over the the broadcast here. But Shaun does have a gallery. It's It's linked in the chat earlier, and if it's not in the description, I'll make sure it's there as well. So, Shaun, if you don't mind, like at least fielding a few of those questions. I know Ron's a good guy. He's is he in the Philadelphia area?
Baltimore.
Baltimore. Okay, so Baltimore. All right.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm on Facebook, obviously, so you can.
Oh, that's true too. Yep.
Yeah, message me through Facebook, and I would help you with Ron because Ron's always looking for work, and he's fast. He did 4 recreations for me in pencil, and it took 4 to 6 weeks, 4 weeks. So
that's great.
About one a week in pencil. I don't know about ink. Okay, so I want to warn somebody on Ron's inking, Ron Wilson's inking. He uses like a sharp, and I've complained about this before. This is why I only have him do pencils. But if you're getting something inked, know that you're getting like a Sharpie type thin line ink job where it could smear. If you ever want to do something with it, it could fade. I guess I stopped using it. In fact, I had one commission that he had inked. I actually had Joe Rubenstein erase and re-ink because I wanted it done with a brush or with a better pen. Mm-hmm. So just be aware that his inking is a little different and a little thinner than you would be used to with other recreations out there. So you may want to just get a pencil and find an inker somewhere else, in my opinion.
Right. So maybe anybody who had that inquiry could ask who you might even suggest to have ink the piece.
Yeah. Even anybody out there right now, even the new guys. Ron's cheap enough to chance stuff like that, in my opinion. So, and Ron does still good work. I've had him do recreations for me and other people of the same cover. I had him once do a Captain Marvel cover, 35, and do it for 2 other people, and all 3 were done differently. He's never drawn a recreation. He doesn't like box, obviously. He's never done a recreation the same way twice. So you're always getting something different.
That's I would, I'd rather have it that way, right? I mean, that's cool. That's really cool. I mean, it probably helps him. It keeps him engaged with it. It makes it fun rather than having to do the same old recreation over and over. So. Hey.
Oh, and you got to be specific. I'll tell you one other little quick thing. I'm sorry I keep tying you up here.
No.
I once asked Ron Wilson to do a Frankenstein 18 or 17 cover recreation. He originally had done the cover. And I wrote that in an email. I said, I want a recreation of Frankenstein 17 cover. And I got back Universal Studio Frankenstein drawn on this cover. I'm like, what the hell? He had Googled Frankenstein on the internet, and this is the image he gave him because he didn't remember the cover. Oh. And he just drew it basically from what I described. And so I had to explain to him, no, I had to send him another image of the cover. And so you may want to, when you do a request, send an image with it so that you don't get that confusion in the future. But he apologized and he redid it real quickly too. And he told me to keep the original, the other one that he messed up on.
Right. Well, he probably couldn't resell it. But no, that's a good words of advice, Shaun.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, listen, we're actually at the 2-hour mark. So
cool.
Time flies, man, when you're chatting. So I sincerely appreciate this, Shaun. I really do. And you've been a member of CAF, I think, since 2004. So you were there right at the beginning in the first year that we were trying to figure things out. So I sincerely appreciate the time that you spent on the site, because it really is the people who've used the site to share their collections that made CAF what it is today. So all your contributions have been really important. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, Bill. I love your site. Keep it up.
I will definitely do that. All right, everybody. Thank you. And I guess I will be on tomorrow night to do a short CAF update. No guests or anything like that. I'll just talk about my favorite artworks from last week, and we'll keep it short so we can all get on with our weekends. So have a good night. And